What was your first interest in iOS development? What sparked your interest in it?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously just a big fan of Apple. Always had iPhone, so
Yeah.
randomly just decided one day just to start making technology for them, and that's kind of really how I started. So, just kind
Right.
of looked up, how to make iOS apps, and from there, kind of took Udemy courses, YouTube,
Mhm.
tutorials. So that's
Right.
pretty much it, to be honest. That's kind of how I started. And from there I kind of led into like, building games using Sprite Kit and Scene Kit. So
Okay, nice.
that was just kind of how I started.
Nice. So how did you like get out of like watching tutorials into
Hmm.
building like actual projects?
Yeah, sure. So I think I started playing around like probably 2014, I would say 2015.
Okay,
So
nice.
that was around like when Flappy Bird was
Oh,
big, if you remember
oh,
that.
yep, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yes,
That's
I was
good.
watching a lot of tutorials on how to like build Flappy Bird, but that kind of like gave me like a foundation,
Right.
you know, of like
Le- Yeah.
kind of like
l-
building, kind of starting from scratch and then building from to the end. You see
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying? So that was
Okay.
kind of how I started. And then from there, I kind of decided to build my own games for my own ideas. So that's kind of yeah.
Okay.
That's how I started.
So did you have like prior programming before that or you just started from scratch?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I think I was about 17 that year. So
Oh,
no,
okay.
I didn't have any programming experience at all.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Nice.
So yeah,
So,
it was just straight just going on YouTube and just
right.
diving in right there.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So how did you like stay motivated?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was intimidating at first, but
Right.
I just kept at it, in
Right.
between school and doing it on
Right.
nights, weekends. So I just kept at it, to be honest.
Okay. That's good. And yeah. And so with that, so you built a couple of apps as well. You put in the app store.
Yeah, so I built probably I would say about 3 or 4 game apps that I published in my lifetime.
Gotcha.
Um,
Nice.
then even from there, kind of just building games, I kind of took it
Mhm.
like a step further of just building kind of iOS applications for different startups and different individuals. So that's kind of like my next phase.
Gotcha. So like at what point did you decide that, oh, I'm ready to become like a professional, to do it professionally as
Yeah,
a
sure. So
developer? Yeah.
I would say probably in 2014, 2015, it was kind of just like playing around, learning,
Right,
building
right.
games. I would say about 2016, 2017, I decided to like take like an official like iOS boot camp, you
Okay,
know,
nice. Yeah.
kind of learning the basics
Right,
of iOS development, networking,
right,
just general stuff like that, unit testing. So
right,
that's
right.
kind of how I jumped into that. So that was yeah, that was around 2016, 2017, and then
Okay.
from there, I kind of just took off from there. Kind of just made a LinkedIn profile, and then from there, just kind
Hmm.
of got a lot of DMs, and recruiters were calling. So that's kind
Right,
of how I got
right.
started there.
Nice. So tell me about the interview process.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, what do you think about the interview process overall? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's correct, like with all the data structures and algorithms, or do you prefer to do like a take-home test?
yeah,
Or
that's a good question. So yeah, so like I was saying, I started probably 2017 ish.
Mhm.
So obviously, just applying to every single job.
Right,
Everybody wants senior developers.
right,
So it was hard getting that actual full-time, salary. It was just kind of freelancing and contracting,
right,
even
right.
until this year,
Mhm.
so that was kind of hard and that was kind of difficult, just
Right,
kind of getting turned down by every single company. Every
right.
single company wants, a senior developer. Senior developer, they want 5 years of experience. So it's
Exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
difficult. And even I did, get a chance to even interview at a few different companies, but
Mhm.
the interviews were so like high level. They wanted, unit testing, they wanted different architectures beyond MVC. They wanted all this advanced stuff. So in
Right.
other words, it was just boom. It was another. We want 5 years of experience.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
Nice.
that was took me
Right.
about probably I would say about 2 years, honestly, of just like really studying, studying interviewing, because that interviewing, that's a whole nother skill, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So
So,
yeah, I would say it took me about 2 years or so to actually get my foot in the door, basically.
wow, 2 years.
Mm.
So
I
that's
would,
very
yeah,
long.
2 years.
Right. And in those 2 years, were you like building portfolio projects on the side
Oh yeah,
or like
definitely.
freelancers?
Definitely. I was nonstop, building on apps from scratch. Even
Right.
working on, game apps. But
Right.
still
Right.
even building, smaller apps
Right.
as well.
Yeah, it goes to show that you have a lot of passion for it. Like
Mhm,
you're really interested in Apple development. I was.
mhm.
So have you like tried to explore Android?
No, I've never really
Okay.
had like an interest in Android. Just wanted
Hmm.
to kind of like just focus on Swift. I
Right.
kind of always thought that you should just be an expert in one field instead of just kind of branching off
Right.
to other fields. So that was kind of my attitude towards that.
Gotcha. All right. So let's talk about your development process.
Hmm.
So let me say you have a new project coming in, you're joining a new team.
Hmm.
Um, how do you like plan out your tasks?
Uh,
Um, yeah,
yeah, sure. So, of course, you could follow agile methodologies.
right,
You could have something called sprints.
right,
Uh, Usually, if I come onto a project,
right.
I would, get the code, kind of review it,
Hmm.
kind of go through it, make kind of my own like comments, kind of structure it,
Okay,
so that's kind of like my first, approach, kind of taking 1 or 2 weeks getting familiar with the code. Um,
nice. Yeah.
another big thing is, if I'm just a sole developer or am I working with a team,
Hmm.
um, if I'm working with let's say a CEO who's kind of not technical.
Right,
So I kind of have to kind of translate, technology requirements to the CEO or whoever's in charge of the project. So it's
right.
kind of my first kind of steps.
So do you prefer to work solo or like in the team?
Um, Good question. I would say, obviously at first, you kind of want to work solo, but it's kind
Right,
of better to, work in a team,
right,
for a lot of reasons. You
right,
can collaborate, you can even learn, different stuff.
right.
So I would say definitely at this point, I definitely like working in a team better.
Okay, that's good. And so you kind of mentioned the unit testing. So,
Hmm.
do you prefer to do like a TDD environment? Uh,
Yeah, so traditionally I would always just kind of like build my projects and then do unit testing, but I've
okay,
kind of recently just been diving into test-driven development.
test review. Okay, so you
Mm.
just write all your tests first before you write down in the code.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And so a lot of people think like it takes away a lot of the time
Hmm.
from development. Do you think like what's the advantage of unit tests and the disadvantage?
It's kind of like a saying, like you kind of build first to fail and then you pass. So
Right.
that's kind of one of the good benefits. You write all your tests,
Hmm.
because you want them to fail and then obviously you want them to pass
Right.
eventually. So it's kind of one of the benefits I've seen with
Right.
test driven development.
And down the road, it's gonna like take you out of debugging, takes out all the bugs out of the
Mhm.
code, right?
Yeah.
And it's much easier to maintain the code as it
Mhm.
grows. Nice. And yeah, so where do you see yourself in like next 3 to 5 years?
Um, Hopefully, kind of leading a team.
Nice.
Fortunately, this will probably be my first year actually having my first time, um, a developer job, like a salary developer job. So,
Gotcha.
kind of, as I said, I started this journey in 2014. So
Right.
yeah, so I'm
Right.
just breaking into the industry, just this
Right.
year.
Right.
So that's kind of yeah, but definitely I want to see myself probably leading a team.
How do you keep up with the Apple iOS development? Because every year there's
Mhm.
something new coming out.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, every year the developer conference is in June, so kind of
Right.
always kept up with that.
Hmm.
Obviously, connecting with people on LinkedIn, using Twitter.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Yeah,
Nice.
just
Watching
going.
WWDC videos.
Yeah,
Right.
connecting with people on YouTube as well. That kind of helped.
Hmm. Nice. So what are your thoughts on Swift and Swift UI?
Yeah, sure. So that's kind of I kind of play with Swift UI, a little
Okay.
bit. I'm not sure, is this still in beta mode or is it finally official now or
Yeah, it is official, but I would say
okay.
it has a lot of constraints to it.
Hmm.
Like there's so many things you can do as opposed to UI kit.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it seems promising, I kind of
Right,
I really have to get into it, but I just been kind of playing around with it and learning it. But
right,
I haven't like really seen it kind of on like job requirements or in interviews.
right. Okay.
So it's probably going to start to be really relevant in the job market. I would say maybe the earliest probably next year, next calendar year. But
Exactly. Yeah, especially
yeah.
it's restricted to like iOS 13. And a
Mm,
lot of apps like are distributed to a lot more people with earlier versions of iOS.
mhm.
Nice. And so with UI, how do you prefer to put together your UI? Do you do it programmatically or storyboards?
Yeah. So traditionally I've always done storyboards, but
Okay,
I would say programmatically is probably the best. Definitely when you're working in a team.
right.
There's something called merge conflicts
Yes,
that
yep.
that happen. Also, I feel like doing programmatically, you kind of have just more control over your UI. You know,
Right, right.
it's also easy to change. Later down the line.
Hmm.
Uh, and what I've also noticed is kind of
Right,
jobs kind of prefer you to do programmatic UI. So that's kind of
right.
if your main goal is to get a developer job, I would say learn do everything programmatically.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also along the same lines as well, like having everything together in
Hmm.
one single place, as opposed to going back and forth between storyboards and programmatically. The code
Hmm.
is easier to maintain. That's good. And what about your networking? How do you prefer to do your network operations?
Yeah. So of course, there's a big debate whether you can use like third party libraries or use like URL session.
Right.
There's kind of benefits to both, but I would definitely say
Hmm.
using less third parties if you can, you
Okay.
know, just taking the native approach, you
Hmm.
know. So I would say take the native approach, but I have used third party libraries for networking like Alamo Fire. But
Right.
yeah, I would just say
Mm,
try your best to do a native approach.
gotcha. And have you ever tried to use like RX Swift for?
Uh,
Um,
no, I have not had the chance to use it yet.
okay, nice. Yeah, if you get an opportunity to look into it, it makes it really convenient to do your synchronous operations.
Okay.
And have you what design patterns have you used? MVC or MVVM?
Yeah, so of course, MVC. I kind of learned MVVM, but I haven't like really used it in practice.
Hmm.
So that's something I definitely want to use.
Yeah.
I've also tried to learn Viper
Okay.
as well. So yeah,
Okay.
just kind of want to branch into those a little bit more.
Okay. I haven't actually used Viper though. What's the difference between that and MVC?
Um, I actually have a friend who used Viper at his job.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to explain. It's definitely for something of larger code bases. I think Uber has used Viper.
Okay.
Um, Wayfair has used Viper. Yeah,
Okay.
so that I kind of don't know much about it. All I know is, it's for large code bases.
Large code bases. Okay.
Kind of when you have to branch off of
And
MVC.
what's the biggest team you've worked in so far?
So the biggest team of like iOS developers or the biggest team of, just kind of developers in general?
I would say both iOS developers and developers in general. Yeah.
Um, to this date, I would say the biggest team of iOS developers I've worked with is two.
Two.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, the biggest team of developers, I would say probably about eight, I would say.
Okay. So on your team of like two developers,
Mm.
how tell me about how you collaborated. Did you do like code reviews, pull requests?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, so we did like pair programming,
okay,
did code reviews. We had the chance at that point to like actually work side by side.
okay,
Um,
nice,
that was a big benefit as well.
right.
Yeah.
And how do you like try to? What are your ways of making sure that you're on the same page and how to like tackle a challenge?
Yeah, a lot of it was just communication, kind of
Right,
you know, just seeing that we were on the same page to begin with, let's say we
nice,
had, the list of requirements from whoever we were working for, you know,
gotcha, nice.
either would say, okay, I'll take this, I'll take that.
Hmm.
Um, if we need to help on something, we would obviously, help each other. But yeah, it was big communication, I would say.
Nice. And yeah, so going back to your journey, like when you're getting started,
Mhm.
did you have like a mentor or somebody telling you like, oh, you should go learn this way?
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
good question.
yeah.
No, actually, I did not know anybody I didn't even know anybody who was a developer, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
And
even,
okay.
yeah, even, I went to Penn State University, even kind of majoring in, the technology aspect. Didn't really know any developers, so didn't know any developers from like, where I live. I live in Philadelphia right now. Didn't even
Okay.
really know any developers there. Didn't know any developers at school. So it was kind of like a lonely kind of journey, But I
Mhm.
did, have the chance to, of course, asking questions on like YouTube and Twitter. But no,
Right.
didn't really have a developer. So that was difficult.
Right. Yeah, because definitely like a lot of people like don't really have that. Like once they got into it for like 3 months, six
Hmm.
months, and they don't have like a mentor. Like a lot of people like don't really go forward because of that. And yeah, I really think that's really helpful. So you got a lot of guidance online on LinkedIn, you say
Hmm.
as well?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, obviously. So
Right,
yeah, just kind of the social media aspect.
right, right. Okay, that's really helpful. Did you go to like any conferences?
Um, I went to one meetup before, but
Okay.
it was like just like a general kind of meetup. It wasn't like specifically for iOS.
Hmm. Right. Nice. And yeah, what sort of advice would you have to somebody out there, who's just getting started,
Um,
or to like,
yeah, guess the advice I would definitely have is just build as many projects as you can. From all levels of easy projects, medium to hard. Uh,
mhm,
that's one thing. If you are fortunate enough to find a developer, maybe somebody who does one-on-one coaching or somebody can help you from time to time. That's definitely another thing. One big thing I would definitely say is just learn all you can. You
mhm,
know,
right,
um, definitely when it comes to applying to jobs, and just patience and persistence. I would say just
right.
have those two things.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like going to it with like a project that you want to build,
Hmm.
as opposed to like just watching tutorials over and over again. Going to like a tutorial rabbit hole,
Yeah.
it's good. It's really like you could go into that for a very long time. But if you have a project you're building, it's
Yeah, I
gonna
would definitely recommend just, building something, and even if
right.
you don't understand something,
Mhm.
you kind of Stack Overflow it or look it up. So that
Right.
also helps you.
Exactly, yeah. Because you can never learn everything.
Yeah, I kind of interact with other developers on Twitter.
Nice.
Definitely a lot in YouTube comments. I
Nice.
try and subscribe to a lot of like iOS newsletters. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, I would say that's pretty much it on that end. Definitely want to get involved more in the community. But
Okay. Who's your favorite social influencer out there?
have you ever heard of Code with Chris?
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah,
Code
and
with Chris. Okay.
Paul Hudson of Hacking with
Oh
Swift.
yes. Yep, yep. Yeah, Paul Hudson
Hmm.
and Shoal Island.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
obviously, I've had the opportunity of having take home tests, having just the telephone, then
Mhm.
having like the data structures and algorithms. So
Right.
I would
And
definitely I would definitely say I've also had the chance of doing live coding as well on like a screen share software too, just to throw that in.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. And do you like that's usually like they ask you like an algorithm question with that, and then you try to
Um,
solve it.
Actually, the one interview I had, it was like kind of like updating code on the main thread versus the background thread,
Okay,
um,
nice.
iterating through like a table view. I actually
Right,
had to do like live coding. I never had to do like a data structure algorithm question on live coding, but
right.
I would say
How
the
would you
most,
get prepared for those questions, for those interviews?
yeah, definitely. It's a good question.
Right.
You know, that's kind of one of the things I have. That's kind of one of the challenges I've faced, especially with like the take home tests and then like the live coding.
Right.
There was actually no way I actually did prepare. It was just I just got hit in the face with it. But over
Okay.
time,
Right.
it was kind of the same thing that companies were asking. It was like, getting hitting this API and displaying it through a table view to some nature. So
Right.
doing interviews kind of prepared me for other interviews, if that kind of makes sense.
Right. 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 Yeah. Just.
Obviously your first interview, you probably won't do well. Maybe you will, maybe you
Mhm.
will be lucky, but probably you won't. So you just have to take that as like a learning step.
Mhm. Right.
So that's kind of something I had to face and I had to deal with. But I would definitely say the take home aspect or, the screen sharing to a certain degree is probably the best approach, you know,
Right.
'cause, yeah, that just kind of that just gets
Just
a feel
goes to
how you
show.
write code, how you
Right.
tackle a problem. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say that. I'm not really too big of a fan for like the data structure and algorithm questions
Mm-hmm.
because I
How
kind of
did
feel
you like get
that's kind of
prepared?
yeah, it's kind of just like a brain buster kind of thing, you know.
Right. How
Um,
did you like get prepared for that?
of
For
course, you can use like HackerRank Elite Code,
right. Right.
uh,
Right.
but I haven't had really too much of those interviews, believe it or not. It was just either
Okay.
take home test or just the straight telephone 50-question interview.
Okay. Right. Right. Gotcha. And nice. And how was the iOS jobs in Philadelphia? There.
So
Was that?
like I think I touched on before, it was all
Okay.
just senior developers, senior developers, senior developers.
Okay. Right. Right.
Um, I actually got the chance of interviewing at Dick's Sporting Goods, and
Okay. Nice.
they were actually, it was fortunate enough they were, bringing on developers at all
Okay.
levels. So I think I'm gonna actually join the team at Dick's this
Nice.
sometime this year. So that's gonna be my first salaried, job, iOS
Right.
developer job, working in a team with senior developers who have 10 years of experience, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
Nice.
that's gonna be like my first first salary job as an iOS developer.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Wish you all the best with that.
Oh, thank you, I
That
appreciate
looks. Yeah. Yeah. Philadelphia. Is it like really a tech hub or?
that. Of course, Comcast is headquartered here. But I
Nice.
have seen like there's a lot of jobs,
Okay.
and there's even a lot of iOS jobs in like the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Nice. Okay.
So that's kind of yeah, I would say a lot of tech jobs here.
Nice. Yeah. So with iOS development, what has been your favorite thing to build? Like, what has been your favorite framework? Or
Question. So I would say my favorite framework, I guess,
yeah.
could be ARKit because I built some
Okay.
games in that. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, I would say ARKit. One other framework I want to get into was core location. That
Gotcha. Right.
that's something I also want to get into as
Right.
well.
You
But
want
yeah,
to?
I also date ARKit.
Yeah, with the arcade, yeah, I think like it has a lot of potential with Apple pushing it for sure. Do you think they're gonna release glasses for that, or
You said that I take classes for it?
oh, do you think they're going to release glasses for ARKit?
Oh yeah, yeah, I've read about all the rumors and the technology stuff about that.
Right.
Yeah, I hope that Apple kind of, you know,
Yeah.
pushes more
Like,
into that.
yeah, I wonder why. Do you think it should be bigger than it is today, or in your
Um,
opinion?
I feel like because you remember Pokemon Go,
Yes.
I
Yep.
feel like that was kind of like for some reason that was like the peak of AR, but it hasn't like
Right.
really been like really popular. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know, but we'll see.
Let's see. Right. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing what you can do with that kit. And
Mhm,
and, um, and also like building table views and collection views.
mhm.
What do you prefer of the two?
Um, Obviously, I work more with table views than collection views, but kind of been doing collection views more.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it really just all depends on what your application needs.
Right. Right. And you get a little more flexibility with a collection view.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. I would say at the moment. Um,
Hmm.
I would definitely love to come back on once I kind of start my new position to just say
Right.
what's the transition from doing like freelancing or contracting to
Most
working at like
definitely.
a you know, huge company basically. That's kind of yeah,
Hmm.
that's kind of one thing, probably a lot of developers
Yeah.
would have questions about, just working on, small code base versus the huge code base, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Like when you get a chance in the future, just feel free to reach out. I'll
Mhm,
definitely let you know. And
mhm.
yeah, where can people reach you on the internet?
I would definitely say LinkedIn is probably the best.
Okay.
You can reach me at Phil Parham.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I would definitely say LinkedIn obviously is the best.
The best way to reach you. Okay. And do you have like an email address or you just email LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Sweet.
my email address is R Parham, my last name, 1997 at gmail.com.
Sweet. All right. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today, Phil, and wishing you all the best. Sure.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Yeah.